Okay, so here we're going to talk about the rate of change. So let's talk about distance versus time. So say you're going to, take a trip and you're going to get on the freeway and you're going to travel for 5 hours at 60 miles an hour and you're going to arrive someplace. So that rate of change is based on your time, right? So if you're driving at 60 miles an hour for 5 hours, you would go 300 miles in miles in 5 hours, right? Okay, so your input, this would represent your input, how long you're driving, and this would represent your output, how far you went. Okay, so you started at 0 miles, you went 300 miles, and the time that it took you was 5 hours. Okay, so this is an example of a rate of change. Okay, now usually what we talk about when we're talking about rate of change is the average rate of change. And the average rate of change has to do with, well, over so much time, what was the average rate of change? We said, okay, say you're going 60 miles per hour. And you would usually write it that way, but you could say 60 miles for every 1 hour. So you're saying on the average, I'm going a changed in distance of 60 miles over a 1 hour time frame. And we represent that as an average rate of change. It would be different if you're talking about like getting onto the freeway. That rate of change where you're going from, on the on-ramp from 0 up to 60, that's going to be a much different rate of change for however long it takes you, so many minutes to, get on, through the on-ramp. That's going to be a different average rate of change than if you were just on the freeway with your cruise control set at 60 miles an hour. Okay, so that's the idea that we're approaching. So we have an example here. They give us a table. It says, using the table, find the average rate of change of the price of gallon gasoline between 2007 and 2009. I'm sorry, I have to back up. Okay, so I got to tell you a little bit more about average rate of change. First of all, they'll say it's the change in Y over the change in X. That's one way they'll say it. They'll call that change delta. It's like a little triangle. It's a Greek letter, delta. So it's delta Y over delta X. So they'll write it that way sometimes. You've actually done this in the past when you were working with linear equations and finding slope. And you would find the change in Y, so Y sub 2 minus Y sub 1, over the change in X, X sub 2 minus X sub 1. So you may remember that as the slope formula for linear equations. Let's see. So our formula for the average rate of change, so average rate of change, we don't know that it's a linear equation. And so to find the average rate of change, we're going to say it's f of x sub 2 minus f of x sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. And so this is the formula that we'll be using for average rate of change. And you can see that it's very similar to the slope formula. Okay, so now that I said all that, now we can go to the table. Find the average rate of change of the price of gasoline between 2007 and 2009. So they give a specific time period, 2007, there it is, 2009. Now, this hopefully isn't confusing to you. This is in terms of Y. So the Y is our input this time. And the C of Y, probably C for cost based on the year, that's going to be our output. So the change in output over the change in input. So we're going to take C of 2009 minus C of 2000, supposed to be a 2. 2007 over 2009 minus 2007. Okay, so I'm hoping you see that for the input, you were basing it on 2007 and 2009. We usually take the later one as our y sub 2, or x sub 2, and so we take the later one and subtract the earlier one. These are in years, okay? So this is what we're doing. Okay, now we have to know what is C of 2009. We have to know what that value is. So we can read that off the table. It's right there, 2.41. So 2.41 minus, now we have to find C of 2007. So what was the output? 2.84. Looks like gasoline went down. Nice. 2.84 over, and then you can actually do this calculation just as it says, 2009 minus 2007. That's going to be a change of 2 years. Okay, so then we can do this calculation. So we might use a calculator if you want and get that calculation there. Let me change to a different color. So we wind up getting a negative 0.43 divided by 2. Now often they'll want you to divide that out so you can have it per unit. And so we're getting this to be negative 0.215. So what is that meaning for gasoline? It's saying that between the years 2007 and 2009, on average, the gasoline was decreasing in price by 21.5 cents, or $0.215, but it was going down on an average rate of 21.5 cents. Okay, so that's the interpretation of that.